The Odd Journey of Leonidas Pearson. In a house on the corner, there lived a bully. Obviously, he didn't think that he was a bully. And if he had thought that he was a bully, it wouldn't have bothered him very much. He didn't really see what could be so bad about bullies. Obviously, he'd never been bullied either. Peaches! Leonidas screamed. Peaches, peaches, peaches! Leo, darling, we don't have any peaches this morning. We only have applesauce. Please be a big boy and eat the applesauce. Applesauce! Leo shrieked it as a question. Applesauce, applesauce, applesauce. Mommy, if I'd wanted applesauce, I would have asked for applesauce. Leo pulled back the end of the spoon and let it go. Big gobs of gray, gooey applesauce flew off the end and splattered against the kitchen window. He watched it stick for a few seconds, then slip, roll, slide, and glob its way down the glass. It landed a big, icky puddle on the floor. Leo laughed. Applesauce, he repeated triumphantly. Oh, of course, darling. I should have asked what you would like besides peaches, since we were all out, Leo's mother said to him. Leo crossed his arms and pouted. No, you should have brought some peaches. Leo knocked his plate off applesauce on the floor. Then he threw his spoon on the ground and kicked the bottom of the table. I'll have peaches for you tomorrow, darling. Just please stop throwing things, Leo's mom said. Her voice was getting a high tone to it, and her face was red like an apple or something. He knew that meant she was getting ready to cry, and that he had gotten his way. Thank you, Mommy. I just love peaches, and I hate applesauce, said Leo. He smiled at his mom, and she smiled back. I know you do, Leo. But I love you, Mommy. I love you too, Leo. Leo hopped down from his chair. It was time for school. Now, children, what would you say a bully is? Miss Charlotte asked. No one said anything. Leo picked his nose. Children? Anyone? Miss Charlotte looks like a spider, Leo thought. A great big ugly spider that I want to step on. A great big juicy spider that explodes when you step on it. Yeah, cool. A nervous boy named Billy raised his hand. Leo watched Billy's hand tremble as he raised it. Yes, Billy? Miss Charlotte called out. What would you say a bully is? Someone who is mean to other people, Billy said slowly, for no reason. Leo laughed at him, and this made the other kids laugh too. Billy's face got very white as the chalk on the chalkboard, and Miss Charlotte frowned. Now, children, that's quite enough. The class hushed up, but a few other kids gave Leo sideways smiles that made him feel really good. More snot ran out of Billy's nose. Cool, Leo thought. Then the bell rang for recess, and everyone stood up and ran out of the classroom. Billy was playing alone in the grass, pacing back and forth and talking to himself. Leo stood still and watched him for a few seconds, listening. And then they all laughed at me, Billy said. I can't help it. I didn't ask to be different. Why are they like that, Herman? Then Billy confused Leo by replying to himself in a voice that sounded very different from his own. Sometimes, Billy, the other children are just mean. It doesn't really matter why. It doesn't matter if they know you're different, or if you ask to be or not. You're just different, so they don't like that. But it's not fair. I wish I could have just give up sometimes, or grow up. I hate being a kid and being helpless, Billy said in his usual voice. Then he switched back to the voice that was strange to Leo. You can't give up, Billy. Promise me you'll always remember. You're braver than you believe, and stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. That was when Leo revealed himself to Billy. Brave? Ha! Strong? Double ha! Smart? Triple ha! You aren't any of those things, Billy. You're weird. You talk to yourself. I wasn't talking to myself, Billy said. His face was all red. I was talking to my imaginary friend. Leo blinked in shock. Then he sneered. Imaginary friend? Imaginary friend? What? You must be a real freak if your only friend is imaginary. There's no such things as imaginary friends. You're dumb. Then Leo marched up to Billy, pushed him down on the ground, and kicked dirt in his face. Billy began to cry. You're so mean. Billy's words turned into a high wail. Leo laughed again, then kicked more dirt in Billy's face. Maybe your imaginary friend will clean up your face, Leo said. Then he laughed, turned, and walked away. Leo walked home after school. Today was very bright and very sunny. He got to a spot in the sidewalk where some girls were sitting and drawing with chalk. He stopped and looked at them for a moment, then called out to them. "Hey," Leo said, "move out of my way." "Promise you won't wreck our pictures," the girl with the pink chalk said. Leo nodded. "I promise." The girls stood up and moved out of Leo's way. He marched up to where they'd been drawing, looked down at it, then laughed. "This sucks," he exclaimed. Then he dragged his feet back and forth over the picture as hard as he could so that his feet made loud scraping sounds, and the girls made crying sounds, and he made heckling sounds. When he was done, he looked down at the sidewalk drawing, which was now nothing more than a bunch of smeared colors in a big, stupid blur. "Now that's better," he said. Then he kicked over the girl's bucket of chalk and jumped on some of the pieces so they broke into tiny fragments. He heckled some more as a few rolled into the street. One of the girls started to cry. "You lied!" the one holding the pink chalk shouted. He smiled at her. "So what?" he asked. "You're a bully," she shouted. "Says who?" Leo asked. "Says me," she said. Then she threw the piece of chalk at Leo. It hit him in the head and he stumbled backwards off the sidewalk. "Ouch!" he shouted. Leo tripped backwards on the lip of the sidewalk, falling onto his back, bonking his head. The whole world went black. When Leo woke up, he was still laying on the ground. He sat up and blinked a couple times. When he looked around himself, he saw that the road was all cracked up and plants were growing out of the middle of it. The buildings of the city all around him looked old and broken, not new and shiny like they had a second ago. He looked towards where the girls had been, then screamed in terror and jumped to his feet. Miss Charlotte was looking at him, but it wasn't really Miss Charlotte. It was just her head stuck on the top of a huge hairy spider. When he screamed, she screamed too and scuttled backwards on her 8 great big legs. "Why are you a spider?" Leo screamed. "I'm not a spider," Miss Charlotte answered. "I'm not a spider," Miss Charlotte answered. "I'm just me." "That means you're a spider," he yelled back. "I'm just me," she repeated. Leo did not know what was happening. "Are you going to hurt me?" he demanded. Miss Charlotte frowned. "Hurt you? No. Why would I do that? I took care of you while you were sleeping," said Miss Charlotte the spider. This time it was Leo who frowned. "Took care of me how?" he asked. "You had a cut on your head and I bandaged it for you," Miss Charlotte answered. Leo raised a hand to where the girl had hit him with the chalk. It felt smooth and unhurt. He looked at Miss Charlotte with a little more trust and she smiled at him nervously. "Why would you do that?" "I wanted to help fix you up," she answered. Leo looked around himself again. "Where are those 2 girls?" he urged. "Where are all the cars? Where are all the people? Why is the city so empty and old? When did it start to get dark?" "There are no people here," she explained, "and it's been sunset here for a while. Soon it will be night. It used to be morning, but the big boy makes it dark." "Who's the big boy?" "The one who rules the city. He keeps us all trapped here and won't let us leave. You must have got here on accident. The big boy wants to make it night here to keep us all in the dark, and he's very close to doing it too. And none of us can stop him." Miss Charlotte suddenly smiled, like she had gotten an idea. "Maybe you can stop him." "But why would I want to stop him?" Leo questioned. "I don't care what happens here. I just want to go home." "You'll have to ask the big boy to let you. Only he can let someone come to the land of the imaginary," Miss Charlotte explained to Leo. Her spider legs rubbed together. "What's the land of the imaginary?" Leo asked. "It's here, where we are," said Miss Charlotte. "We're all the imaginary friends of children where you're from. This is where we have to live since we aren't allowed in the real world." Miss Charlotte looked sad. Leo thought for a second, then said, "Do you know how to get to the big boy?" "Why?" Miss Charlotte asked, suddenly excited. "Are you going to stop him?" "No," Leo scoffed. "I just want to get the heck out of here. I don't believe in any of this stupid imaginary stuff." "I can bring you to the big boy," Miss Charlotte told him. But she looked afraid. "Except it will be hard, and I'm afraid of him." "Well, I'm not afraid of anything. Lead the way, Mrs. Spider." They walked together for a while, Leo struggling to keep up with Miss Charlotte. She was very fast as a spider, and he didn't think she was scary, but he did think she was gross and cool. "How long will it take us to get to the big boy?" he asked her. Not long, unless we run into trouble, Miss Charlotte said. After a while, Miss Charlotte stopped. Leo stopped next to her, getting angry. Why are we stopped? I'm in a great big hurry to get home. Look, she said. She raised one huge hairy leg and pointed. The path winded down the hill and into the sunset. In the middle of the path at the bottom of the hill sat a giant peach. It was the biggest peach Leo had ever seen. It was as big as his house at home, and its eyes were the size of his house windows. He shivered and began to feel afraid. To cover this up, he started walking down the hill. Leo, wait! Miss Charlotte called after him. He may not let you pass. Who cares, stupid spider? Not me. I'm not scared of a big dumb peach. He kept walking, his heart beating very fast. He heard Miss Charlotte moan fearfully behind him and scuttle after him. The peach was reaching down to the little tree beside him and plucking off other small peaches and eating them. The juice dribbled down his big fat chin. Leo stopped just a few feet away. Get out of my way, fatso, he shouted up at the peach. The peach blinked at him, confused. I said move, fatso. Fatso? The giant peach repeated. Leo nodded and stomped his foot impatiently. That's right, fatso. F-A-T-S-O. That spells you. The peach looked at Leo for a moment, then reached out towards him with a long, peachy arm. Leo laughed and jumped backwards, his fear disappearing a little. Too slow, fatso. S-L-O-W. That spells. The peach's other hand grabbed him and lifted him in the air. Leo screamed and squirmed and tried to get out, but the peach's hand was too strong. He heard Miss Charlotte yell something from the ground, and he couldn't hear her. He was so high up that she looked like a normal spider from up here. He looked back at the giant peach and tried to be brave. He was very close now, and the peach opened his mouth and made a loud ah sound, kind of like thunder. Inside of its mouth was very pink and fleshy, very moist and very smelly. Juice from the other small peaches ran down the front of it. Then Leo was inside the pink fleshy mass, being chewed up, being eaten, being turned every which way, and being crushed in the dark. He tried to be brave. He couldn't. He screamed a blood-curdling scream. Leo heard a loud gulping sound, and then he was falling. He landed on a soft, bouncy surface, shook his head, and stood up. A dark red light was coming from one of the, what was it? Room? Stomach? One of them. Either way. Leo looked at the light and saw that the source was a big, red, wrinkly ball. The pit of the peach, he thought. That's where they grow from. He suddenly got another idea. Leo took a deep breath and ran towards the giant, glowing peach pit. He yelled like an ancient warrior, his heart beating fast. Yelling helped him feel braver than he actually was. He had one last thought before he kicked the peach pit. What if it isn't all in my head? What if it isn't imaginary and I die? What if I never get to see Mom again? Leo didn't have much time to think about this. He kicked the peach in the pit, and the pit exploded. He heard the peach yell from the outside, and the room's stomach thing around him began to collapse. Leo screamed. The walls fell in around him, pressing against him so tight he couldn't breathe. The whole world kept turning and twisting and moving. There was no more light, then everything was still. I think I killed it, he thought. He took a deep breath. Everything was dark around him. He was afraid of the dark, and he wished he could hide from it. Let me out! He cried. He flailed blindly with his arms and legs and felt part of the wall give way. He did it again, pushing apart more of the smelly pink mass that was making it hard for him to breathe. He kicked again and again, until finally a ray of red light poked through at him. Leo kicked and the light got brighter. He used his arms to pull himself forward. A moment later, his head popped out of the side of the peach, and he took a deep breath of fresh air. You're alive! Miss Charlotte called up to him. Her voice sounded like it was far away. Leo looked to where it had come from, and when he saw how high up he was, he wanted to cry. I can't get down, he yelled back. Yes, you can. Wait a second. Miss Charlotte began scuttling around in a circle. After a few seconds, she had created a giant silver web for him, and she perched on the side of it, holding up 2 of her 8 hairy legs. Okay, she shouted. Jump! It might not hold me, Leo shouted back. He didn't know if he was more afraid than he had been a few minutes ago. It'll hold you, Miss Charlotte promised. It better, Leo threatened. He took a deep breath and rolled out of the peach. He fell super fast. The orange, fleshy walls of the peach zoomed past him in a blur, and for a second, Leo imagined he was a bird. Then he landed on the web, bounced back up like he was on a trampoline, came back down, landed on the web again, and stuck. He looked up at Miss Charlotte, who seemed upside down from his point of view. Leo was wet, covered in goo, smelled like peaches, and his heart was beating so fast he thought it might explode out of his chest and run away into the sunset. "This has been a terrible day," he said. It was a little while later that they came to a stream. Miss Charlotte told him to pause, go in, and wash up, and he did so very gratefully. "I'll never complain about applesauce again," he thought to himself. As Leo washed peach juice out of his hair, he thought more about what Mrs. Charlotte had told him, about Big Boy, about night. "I'm afraid of the dark," he thought. "Dark comes at night. Is how I felt stuck in that peach when I couldn't breathe. Is that how Miss Charlotte and everyone else in the land of imaginary would feel if Big Boy made night happen? I thought this was all fake before, but when I was stuck in the peach, when I thought I might die, it all felt very, very real." "How would someone stop Big Boy?" Leo exclaimed suddenly, "if they wanted to?" "Well, for you it would be easy. You would just have to tell him that he can move on," explained Miss Charlotte. She watched him from the bank of the river. "Move on to where?" Leo asked. Miss Charlotte shrugged all 8 legs and smiled. "We don't know, just on." "But what does that mean?" Leo still didn't understand. "When our children, our friends from your world," Miss Charlotte said, "grow up, we aren't really needed anymore. We get to grow up too, in a way, and move on. We get to leave here. We all look forward to it, except for Big Boy." Miss Charlotte paused and frowned. "The Big Boy says there's nothing after that. He says we just fade away forever, and that there's nothing after the land of imaginary. That's why he wants night to happen, so that none of us can ever move on, so we don't go away." "Well, he doesn't sound so bad when you put it that way," remarked Leo. "He just wanted to help." "But night is scary," Miss Charlotte protested. "Then why can't one of you just tell him to move on?" inquired Leo. "Because we don't have that kind of power. We're each tied to someone from your world. Only someone like you can tell us to move on, so it has to be you." I'll try my best, Miss Charlotte, when we reach Big Boy." "You will?" She lifted her head up. "Yes," Leo stated, unsure if he made the right choice. Leo and Miss Charlotte continued down the path, rounded a corner, and they were face to face with a big, fluffy blue wall. Leo went crashing into the large mass, the momentum knocking him backwards. "Ouch! Who goes there?" a scruffy voice thundered. Leo looked up at the towering figure, which he now realized was a back and shoulders, now turning around towards him, a big, fuzzy face coming into view. Leo's eyes got wide, and he let out a squeak of fear. "I said, who goes there?" the fuzzy creature bellowed. Leo was very afraid, but Miss Charlotte let out a chuckle. "Herman, it's me, Miss Charlotte," she exclaimed. Herman lifted his fuzzy paws and rubbed his eyes. Then he reached behind him and produced a set of spectacles, sliding them onto his nose. "Miss Charlotte, it is you!" He jumped to his furry feet, grabbing one of her spidery legs in his paws, shaking it vigorously. From the ground, Leo now had a full view of the creature standing in front of them. Herman looked like a huge lion with bright blue fur and a full purple mane. Leo could see that he was covered in different colors of chalk, pieces of it littering the ground around where he was sitting. The lion was looking at him fiercely, and he realized that he'd been staring. "I've met you before, Leo," Herman growled, "but I'm sure you don't remember me." Leo looked back at him confused, finally standing up from his spot on the ground. "You're right, I don't think I do remember." Herman scoffed. "Of course not. I bet you don't remember Billy either. He's my best friend," he huffed in anger. Suddenly everything clicked into place. Leo thought back to when he heard Billy talking to himself in a voice that sounded suspiciously like Herman's. "Oh," Leo replied, his cheeks going red. "That's right. You're just a big, stupid bully, Leo. How can you live with yourself, making fun of people for just being different than you?" Herman crossed his arms and looked at him expectantly. I'm really sorry. I don't know why I did it. And Billy was right about imaginary friends being real." Leo looked down at his shoes, ashamed. "You should be sorry. But I'm not the person you should be apologizing to. Billy's the one who deserves that." "You're right. I'm going to apologize next time I see him." Leo looked back up at Herman. Herman nodded back, looking less angry. Well, we better get on our way, Leo, Miss Charlotte insisted. The big boy is close. It was good to run into you, Herman.
You too, Miss Charlotte. Good luck with the big boy. I hope I see you around.
Herman shook Miss Charlotte's spider leg again. Leo started heading down the path, taking extra care not to step on any of the chalk pieces or the drawing of Billy and Herman holding hands that was in progress. Miss Charlotte scuttled after him down the path, using one of her legs to wave to Herman. That's it? Leo asked. Miss Charlotte nodded. That's it. That's the big boy's lair. Well, okay. Leo shifted nervously on his feet. He looked up at the big shoe and scratched his head. Guess it's a big enough shoe for someone to live in, Leo thought. So what now? Go ring the doorbell, Miss Charlotte said. It's that easy? It's that easy. If it's so easy, then why am I so scared? Leo asked her. Because doing the right thing, the brave thing, often takes so much courage that we don't think we can do it. But when we try, we find out that it's not so hard to do it after all, Miss Charlotte said. She smiled at Leo. Really, Miss Charlotte? Really, Leo. You can do this. Okay, he answered uneasily. He took a deep breath and started walking towards the house. When he got halfway there, Miss Charlotte called out to him, Leo! Yeah? He asked, turning. Miss Charlotte smiled at him. I believe in you. Leo smiled back, gathered his courage, and walked the rest of the way to the shoe house. He raised a hand, pointed a finger, and pressed the doorbell. He heard a sound from inside, like one of those gongs in the school band ringing. He had always made fun of the kids in the school band and called them losers, but secretly he loved listening to them play at concerts and assemblies. He especially loved the gongs and how they made the sound they were named. Gong, 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 gong. The door of the shoe house opened. Leo lost his breath for a second and stared up at the big hairy man thing in front of him. Big Boy was at least 8 feet tall. He had on a blue backpack, had dark brown hair and bright blue eyes. He was also covered in coarse black hair. What is this? Big Boy boomed. A human? Here? In my house? I'm not in your house, Leo squeaked. I'm just outside of it. Big Boy looked down at him, then bellowed out laughter. The laughter made Leo feel small. It also sounded familiar. Heh, 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 the big boy laughed. You are not funny. You are stupid. I'm not stupid, Leo whined. He forgot where he was. Yes, you are, Big Boy boomed. Stupid. Brave. Ha. Strong. Double. Ha. Smart. Triple. Ha. You aren't any of those things, Leo. You're weak and stupid. Who says I'm weak and stupid? Leo stammered fearfully. I do, Big Boy continued. Leo Pearson, weak, stupid, and scared of the dark. I'm not scared of the dark, Leo screamed. I'm not scared of the dark. I'm not scared of the dark. I'm right and you're wrong. I'm big and you're small, and there's nothing you can do about it. Leo! Miss Charlotte screamed from behind him. Leo, don't listen! Don't listen! He heard Big Boy laugh again. Heh, 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 heh. He suddenly knew why the laughter sounded familiar. It was his own. Leo whirled around and looked back up at Big Boy. Big Boy had Leo's hair, his eyes, his face, his nose, his backpack, his everything, except it was all bigger, hairier, grosser, scarier. It was him. But I don't want to look like that, he thought. He thought of poor, stuttering Billy, of the girls with the chalk creations, and how he had yelled at his mom. What had they done to deserve him being mean? This was how he looked to them. I never looked like this to myself, he thought. He looked back over his shoulder at Miss Charlotte. Her eyes were wide and pleading. I believe in you, Leo said. Then he turned around and stared at Big Boy in the eye. You can move on, he bellowed. Big Boy's eyes went wide. It's time to move on. We don't want you here anymore. Then, in a flash of light, Big Boy was gone. Leo is propelled backwards, hitting his head on the ground with a thwack. Leo woke up and his head was hurting. His eyes flew open and he sat up in his bed as quickly as he could. He looked around himself, not knowing where he was. Am I home? He yelled. Am I home? He looked around himself. He saw white walls, beeping equipment, and computer screens. Something beside him was beeping very annoyingly. He tried to reach towards it, but his arm hurt. He looked down. It was because his arm was in a cast. Billy, he called out. Billy, I'm so sorry. Billy, Mom, Chalk Girls, Leo, you're awake, his mother exclaimed from the chair next to his hospital bed, leaning over to bring him into a hug. Tears came to Leo's eyes. Mom, I missed you. You'll never believe what happened, he exclaimed, hugging her back with his good arm. All of a sudden, commotion erupted through the door, and Miss Charlotte, followed by Leo's entire class, entered, Billy coming in last, nervously. Hi, Leo. We wanted to come see how you were feeling, Miss Charlotte exclaims. Thank you, guys. It means a lot. Especially that you came, Billy, Leo croaks. What? Really? Yes. I realize how mean I've been to you. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. Leo looks into Billy's eyes. Tears come to Billy's eyes. Thank you, he whispers. The end.